the time is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Yang saya
Waalaikumsalam.
hormati Profesor Fakhri Mangunjaya sebagai Ketua Pusat Pengajian Islam. Saya hormati juga Profesor Ibrahim Ozdemir PhD yang insya Allah akan menjadi pembicara kita pada malam hari ini. Very special meeting with you, Profesor Ibrahim, and thank you for your coming in this good occasion.
It's my
Kawan-kawan
pleasure.
sekalian,
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
kawan-kawan sekalian, ya, you are welcome. Ada baiknya saya memberitahukan kepada ustazah sekalian bahwasanya Profesor Ibrahim Ozdemir PhD adalah seorang profesor yang juga sekaligus sebagai dean ataupun dekan di Fakultas Humanities dan Social Science di Üsküdar University Turki. Beliau juga yang lebih hebatnya adalah sebagai member dari drafting team of the Islamic Declaration for Global Climate Change tahun 2015, dan juga beliau sangat suka sekali ketika meneliti dalam bidang normatif etik, value theory, environmental ethic, dan so on dan selainnya. Kawan-kawan sekalian, beliau juga sebagai guest lecturer di Harvard University, juga di Harvard Seminary, dan juga di Turku, Finlandia. Sungguh hebat beliau ini. Dan suka betul publish many article dan juga mentranslate many text dalam philosophical translation into Turkey. Baik, sudah kita kenal beliau sebagai seorang profesor handal pada isu-isu lingkungan. Oke, Profesor, we would like to listen from you, knowledge of course, and please give us, or we shall listen your PowerPoint and also your knowledge until we really learn a lot from your academic, scientific of this environmental theory. Oke, kawan-kawan sekalian, kalau ada yang mau bertanya nanti, silahkan langsung ataupun chat. If some of us would like to ask to Professor Ibrahim, we allow you, maybe we chat and maybe direct. We will give the time to Prof. Ibrahim an hour first. Is it okay, Professor? If we will give you an hour. Is it okay? Thank you so much. Now, this is Professor Ibrahim will give us a great lecture and will teach us a lot for Islamic ethics. The time for you.
Excuse me, Mr. Ozdemir. Maybe I would like to interrupt you to choose your speak to English, please.
Okay. Now it's okay. It's
So
okay
Mr.
now.
Fahrudin can just speak to Indonesia. Thank you.
No, it's okay.
Okay.
I can listen in
Okay.
English.
Okay. I just yes. No, it is English. Speaking to English. Okay. You know, it's a great pleasure for me to be here this evening, and good evening to all of you from Boston, United States. I am here now in America, and I wish I be with you because I visited your beautiful country twice. One, I was in Jogja for 1 month. I attended a summer school, and then also I visited Jakarta on another occasion. Inshallah, I visit for the third time in the future. In this talk, I will bring you, to a new understanding of environment from the Quranic perspective. When we say, as you see, we start, all of us, we start Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. I understand Bismillah as the key concept of Islamic environmentalism and anything in Islamic. In the name of Allah, the merciful, the compassionate. Occurred 114 times in the Quran. As you know, Bismillah, in the name of Allah, is the start of all good things, all things good. And this short poetic phrase contains the true essence of the Quran. Therefore, we have to understand from the Quranic perspective how Bismillah connect us to the creation, then for the care of creation. The common translation of this phrase, as you know, fails to capture the true depth of meaning or inspirational message of these beautiful expressions. So the central idea here is that whatever we do, every step that we take, every breath that we breathe is done for, because of, and through the essence of the one who has created us. Okay? So, the Muslim scholar Said Nursi is you know, a contemporary scholar. He says the Bismillah in the name of God is at the beginning of all that is good, and we too shall begin in His name. He reminds my soul that this phrase is one of the blessed distinguishing characteristics of Islam. It is being recited constantly by all beings, either verbally or through the tongue of their God-given disposition. The Bismillah is a source of limitless strength and bounty. You see here, Said Nursi says, all beings, they say Bismillah. Just remember, and I will remind you, in the Quran, in the Surah Isra says, وَإِن مِّن شَيْءٍ إِلَّا يُسَبِّحُ بِحَمْدِهِ. What this mean for us as Muslim environmentalists? Okay, so, and as you say, I said, وَالصَّلَاةُ وَالسَّلَامُ عَلَى سَيِّدِنَا مُحَمَّدٍ بِعَدَدِ أَوْرَاقِ الْأَشْجَارِ وَأَنْوَاجِ الْبِحَارِ وَقَطَرَاتِ الْأَمْطَارِ. What this mean? I got this from Imam Ghazali rahimahullah. You see, as the Quran says, if you it is for translation. Is it good, Fahrettin? It is this speed is good. Is Adinda is for translation. Is yeah. Is I can speak slowly if you like. Is okay? Okay.
I'm sorry, Mr. Prof. Osdemir. There we have the technical issue, so I will end the interpreter. Wait a second, please.
I am trying to speak slowly.
I'm sorry, the mistaken of the interpreter. I should take the English to Indonesian, and you should take English Indonesian into English.
Okay.
Yeah, wait for a moment. It's technicality we also
Okay.
have experience. Sorry for that, Professor.
Let me know. Okay, no problem.
Okay. Ya,
I have time.
maaf ya, kita mau menerjemahkan, kita belum biasa dengan ini teknik. Mohon maaf, kita ulang sekali lagi.
Oke, silakan.
Yes. English. Okay. I choose English. Okay.
Okay, Prof. Osdemir, you can start.
Okay. You know,
I'm sorry, Mr. Osdemir. Bapak Ibu yang izin, ini saya ingin menginformasikan lagi kalau misalkan Bapak Ibu yang ingin mendengarkan Prof. Ozdemir silakan pilih yang Indonesia, kalau misalkan yang Pak Farudin yang bahasa Inggris, yang English. Terima kasih. We can continue, sir.
Okay, so when I read, Kimya-i Sa'ada by Ghazali, rahimahullah, the alchemy of happiness, I just was speechless when I saw he start the book with this, words. When he says, Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad, bi'adad awraqi al-ashjar wa anwaji al-bihar wa qatarat al-amtar. Oh my God, look at the universe. Look at the understanding of a Muslim scholar who is looking at the universe. Countless gratitude equal to the number of stars in the sky, drops in the rainfalls, leaves of trees, particles of sand of deserts, the atoms in the heavens, and the earth is befitting only for Allah, whose attribute is oneness and all majesty, greatness, highness, and excellence is a specific for him. Look at this perception of environment. When he's praying, when he's making salat for Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he's just the stars in the sky, the drops in the rainfalls, the leaves of trees is joining him. This is very important to understand what is the Muslim perception in what environment is. So again, in the Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, again in the first chapter, when you start reading the Quran, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. What Rahman wa Rahim means for a Muslim environmentalist, we have to understand this. So the word Rahman would denote mercy comprehending the entire universe. So it is not randomness, it is not blunt evolution. What is working in the universe is Rahmah. You see, it is the mercy comprehending everything. So the Rahim, mercy limited in scope, but repeatedly shown to us in the book of universe. So thus Ar-Rahman is he who shows mercy graciously and extensively to all creation without regard to effort or work. You see, it is the whole creation. If Allah is the creator of the universe, if Allah is the sustainer of the universe, so what we should do? We have to develop an ethics of compassion towards the creation of Allah. This is why I just started. Then just, be Muslim, be proud of our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we very often says, our Prophet is rahmatan lil alamin.
Maaf
Is
Pak
it okay?
Ibrahim, tidak ada suaranya ya.
You see, we Muslims, we proud of our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We says he's a blessing. He's a blessing for all universe. He's a mercy for all universe. And if you mute other mics, it will be distracting me. Okay, Adinda. Now in the Quran it says, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ.
Suara Mr. Ibrahim tidak ada ya.
وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. It says in the Quran. We as Muslims, we have to think deeply. We have not sent you, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, except as a mercy to the world. Oh, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is a mercy for us. Because of him, we are Muslims. He's a rahmat for our families. It is a rahmat for our children. But who is a mercy for other people? Who is a mercy for animals? What is the meaning of the mercy for all other creatures? We have to think deeply on this. What is the meaning of to be?
Sorry, Mr.
mercy?
Ibrahim, your voice is not yet. Maybe you can setting.
Mohon. Saya
It is English, listening in main audio, speaking English to English. Is it okay? There is two options. One is Indonesia, one is English.
You speaking to English, Prof. Özdemir.
Okay.
Okay.
So you can hear me, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Can I continue?
Please.
Yes. So how during his ministry, he presented himself presented good examples of how compassion can be a source of moral responsibility
Sorry,
towards
Miss,
all
until now,
creatures.
his voice not.
Is it okay?
It's okay, sir.
Yes. So the Prophet ﷺ was a source of compassion for human, even his enemies, you know. Just remember the Battle of Badr. He, you know, how he treated the Meccan captives, you know. So the protection and kind treatment of animals, whole creation. See, and he says, you know, the most merciful one is merciful towards those who are merciful. Act kindly to those on the earth so that those in the heavens, the angels, will be merciful to you. So this is once more, it reminded me, we Muslim environmentalists, we have to develop an ethics of compassion to animals, to all species, and to all creation. Why? Because everything is created by Allah and entrusted to us. So, and when, you know, I just give talk on environment, I remember the Prophet Ibrahim and the story Prophet Ibrahim and alayhi salam and ant. You see, Nimrod lit a great fire in which to throw the Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, while a crow was carrying brushwood to throw into the fire, and ant was carrying some water. The crow asked the ant mockingly, "What are you going to do with the water?" And the ant said, "I am carrying water to put out the fire into which they will throw Ibrahim." The crow laughed and said, "The water you carry cannot possibly put out the huge fire." And the ant said, "That's all right. I know it will be not sufficient, but I will have demonstrated my commitment." My dear sisters and brothers, what Fakhruddin Mangunjia is doing, what Ibrahim Özdemir is doing, what we Muslim environmentalists trying to do is the same. We know our work is humble, but our niyyah, our intention is sincere. We want to be the voice of 1.8 billion Muslims voice, you know. So we have to tell the world what Muslims think about environment. So let me just, you know, remind you, when we say environment, what we mean. The word environment is derived from the French word environ, which means surrounding. It's everything that makes up our surroundings and affects our ability to live on the earth. The air we breathe, the water we drink, you see, the plants, animals around us, and much more. Environment consists of an inseparable whole system constituted by physical, chemical, biological, social, and cultural elements, which are interlinked individually and collectively. So when, as a Muslim, I read this verse from the Quran, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, وَلِلَّهِ مَشْرِقُ وَالْمَغْرِبِ فَأَيْنَمَا تَوَلُّوا فَتَمَّ فَثَمَّ وَجْهُ اللَّهِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ وَاسِعٌ عَلِيمٌ. You see? And also in the Surah Al-Fatiha, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. So this is the environment, my brothers, sisters, and brothers. The sustainer of all worlds. So we are living, just look how Quran presents the world to us. So the sustainer of all worlds, that is all environments. The Quran expresses this truth as follows. To God belong the east and the west, whichever direction you turn, your face there is the presence of Allah. So we are always in the presence of Allah. You see, for God is all embracing and all knowing. And this is Quran, Surah Al-Baqarah 115. Yeah. So we are Quran, we should not forget that the sustainer, the Lord, the owner of all environments, at the same time is all creator. Heavens, the planets, the stars, the galaxies, the earth, oceans, seas, lakes, rivers, lofty mountains, forests, all living creatures. That is all natural phenomena created and sustained by Allah, constitutes our environment. This is Islamic definition of environment. You see, everything is created and sustained by Allah. Thus, when we say environment, we understand all these natural phenomena as a whole. Moreover, we can add to the natural environment or social environment too. The later, the social environment includes poverty, homelessness, migration problems, racism, abandoned children, drug abuse, alcohol, addiction, neighbors, and other problems. You see, we Muslims has a broad definition of environment, physical environment, spiritual environment, and also social and cultural environment. So we have to. So what is environmental ethics? When we talk environmental ethics, it is core concepts of anthropocentrism, non-anthropocentrism, biocentrism, ecocentrism, ecofeminism. So environmental ethics, a branch of philosophy that explores and seeks to understand the moral relationship between humans and natural world. And I will make clear for you how Quran just, present us a new perception of nature. And also environmental ethics examines questions of how humans should behave and make decisions regarding the environment, taking into consideration the well-being of ecosystems, non-human animals, and future generations. Have we any responsibilities to future generations or not? It's a moral problem. What Islam says about that? What Quran says about that? And environmental ethics, aims to promote sustainable and responsible actions towards the environment, while questioning anthropocentrism and promoting an intrinsic value of nature. It encompasses topics such as conservation, resource management, environmental justice, and the rights of non-human entities. So, in fact, many people, these problems, keeps many people up at night. Some sensitive people in the East and also in the West. In the Muslim world, like Fakhruddin, and also in the West. Here we have many friends who they couldn't go to sleep. Why? Because the major global issues are all interconnected and should be studied that way. Transportation, population, shelter, food supply, energy, environmental health, natural resources, economy, communication, and a lot of sub-problems. They're all interconnected. So we have to understand this. Just look at the social ecologists work the same way as our material ecology. You see, widening inequalities and horrific injustices coming in the form of movements of growing refugee populations. The migration and refugees problem in Turkey, population is in Europe and also in America. So it is a social problem and also ecological problem, because because there are economic refugees, climate refugees, refugees from wars fought over the stakes of all these crashes, the political violence and terror that accompanies them. This affects undercurrents that are your response, that all response to the eyes of the world haunting us from out of the corners of our vision. So we Muslims, we have also to care. We have to care about this problem too. So there is also sustainable development goals. What we mean by development. The present traditional economic system is not sustainable. So we are trying to have a new economic system in the world. There's a lot of studies in the UK, in the Europe, and also in America, and also in the Muslim countries, how we can replace the non-sustainable economic system with a sustainable one. You see, so we Muslims have to deal with this too. Why? We are talking about environmental ethics, because the Muslim awareness matters. The Muslim population of the world is estimated at around 1.8 billion. The largest religion in the world after Christianity. And according to a study, the number of Muslims is expected to increase by 70% from 1.8 billion in 2015 to nearly 3 billion in the 2060. So Indonesia is the biggest Muslim country. So you have many responsibilities to be a good example, to set good example for the Muslim world. I know in the leadership of Fakhruddin Mangunjia, you are doing a lot of great things. And this project is also, this is why this project is so important. See, we have to raise the Muslim awareness about environment, because Islamic values and culture influence how these people see and treat the world around them. What they eat and drink, Islam shapes this. When they work and have children, where they live and travel, or even when they select a particular course of education and pastime. Therefore, we believe that Muslims have something quite unique to offer in resolving the dilemmas we face. So, and many of problems, what we need is a deeper and holistic understanding of the universe, of ourselves, and of everything. Harsha Walia is a Canadian human rights advocate and environmentalist. Strongly argues in her recent book, people still have a strong belief in science and technology. 2, nation state. 3, charismatic and autocratic leaders to solve any problems without realizing that they are the source of the problem. You see, sometimes science and technology without values is a source of a problem, destroying nature. The nation-state mentality, and also the charismatic and autocratic leaders. But we Muslims, every single Muslim must educate herself or himself as a Khalifatullah fil ard. Not only the ruler or rulers or leaders, they are Khalifa. Every single of you is a Khalifa. We define in the new AlMizan, a covenant for the earth, declaration, a new declaration, we define it very well. Every single mu'min, ladies and gentlemen, you are Khalifatullah fil ard. We have to take our full responsibility to care for creation, which has been created and sustained by Allah. You see, this is, so Harsha suggests that to turn this tide upside, we should change our perception of nature, science, and technology and politics. This is why in Indonesia, in Malaysia, in Turkey, in many Muslim countries, we are talking about the Islamization of Islamization of knowledge, or
Deng.
Tawhidi paradigm. And the Tawhidi paradigm.
Oh, astagfirullah.
If you can mute other speakers, then it will be good for me. Okay. You see, we need a paradigm change. We need a new Tawhidi paradigm, what we call Tawhidi paradigm. Therefore, we need a deeper and holistic understanding of the problems facing us and having deep and enduring impacts on us and ecosystems. As the challenge is global, our response also must be global, with a spirit of dialogue and solidarity. You see, you are in Indonesia, I am in America, or we are talking on the same topic, how we can solve our environmental problems, how we can look at nature, look at universe, look at also from the Quranic perspective with a moral responsibility. And here, our worldview is very important, because I will, talk about some worldviews. The worldviews are very, very important, because, a worldview is a complete way of thinking about what the world is and how it works. Whatever you realize, one or not, you do. It is what shapes your expectations. Therefore, if some element of your worldview fails to meet your expectations, it can cause a great deal of confusion and frustration. This is the problem in the Muslim world. We neglected to understand the Quranic worldview, the Quranic perception of universe, the Quranic perception of nature. So let me now introduce you. And the ultimate questions of life lie deep within the heart of everyone. Who am I? Where am I going? What's it all about? Is there a God? How can I live and die happily? Everyone formulates some answer to these questions about the human condition, if only partially or implicitly. So the answers we give may be our worldview or vision of the life. So now let's turn to the Quranic worldview. How Quran presents us the universe. Toshika Izutsu, you may be familiar with this, Japanese scholar who was a passionate scholar of Quran. Izutsu discovers a fourfold relation between God and man, which is very relevant for our topic here. You see, is the Quranic worldview. God is the creator of man and universe. The first principle, from the Quranic perspective, God is the creator of human being and also the universe. Second, he communicates his will to man through revelation. This is the prophet, Nubuwa. Third, there subsists a Lord-servant relationship between God and human. Lord-servant relationship. Fourth, the concept of God as the God of goodness and mercy for those who are thankful to him, and God of wrath and for those who reject him. You see, the concept of God as a God of goodness and mercy. As I said, I will talk, this is very important to understand Islamic environmentalism, because Quran with this worldview has been a source of inspiration, illumination, and guidance for Muslim philosophers, Kalam scholars, Sufi masters, Muslim scientists, and jurists. Today, the Quran can also play such a role in developing an environmental ethics. Okay? I will just summarize some key points and then leave it to you. The first thing, the pre-Islamic Arabs regarded nature lifeless, meaningless, and purposeless. To understand the Quranic worldview, we have to look to pre-Islamic Arabs, how they look at nature. According to Arabs before Islam, nature was lifeless, meaningless, and purposeless. The Quran, from the first day, declared at the top of Mount Nur, Jabal Nur, that the heavens and the earth and all between created with a purpose and meaning. Therefore, everything has been created with a specific order, duty, meaning, and purpose. And I gave all a number of verses here. So universe and nature are not out there by accident as a result of the process of blind and random evolution, as some evolutionary theorists claim, or chaotic configurations without meaning and purpose. Universe has an order, meaning, and purpose. Therefore, the conclusion, if human ponders and scrutinizes the very structure of natural phenomena, he can deduce the existence of a creator who is all-powerful and all-knowing and all-merciful. So just remember how Quran educated and trained our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. On the first day of revolution, in the month of Ramadan, he was in the cave of Hira, at the top of the Jabal Nur, and Jibril alayhi salam visited the Prophet and says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Iqra bismi rabbika allazi khalaq. He says, Iqra. He said, I don't know how to read. I am illiterate. And he repeated again and again. And third time, Jibril alayhi salam told the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Iqra bismi rabbika allazi khalaq. خلق الإنسان من علق اقرأ وربك الأكرم الذي علم بالقلم صدق الله العظيم. Read in the name of your Lord and sustainer who created. This is the key phrase for Muslim environmentalists, for Muslim perception of universe. The Lord who creates, who sustains is our Lord and created man out of the germ cell. Read, for your Lord is the most bountiful one, who has taught the use of the pen, taught man what he did not know. Now here, just remember what reading means here. Reading, Iqra, here means a completely new way of looking at the world. Because before that revelation, the world, the nature was lifeless, meaningless, and purposeless according to Arabs. But here, from the first day, you see, the key notion is this, that this reading should be in the name of our Lord, who is the creator and sustainer of the universe. Just look around yourself. Just see who is creating all life around us. Who is sustaining it? It is Allah. The Quran changed this perception. You see, 15,000 years ago. Therefore, from the very beginning, the Quran declares that Allah is the real creator, owner, and sustainer of all reality. Hence, all reality should be seen and read with this point of view in mind. The impact of this earlier verses should not be underestimated, as they were shaping Muslim worldview, as well as the identity vis-a-vis pagan perception of nature. Everything starts, works, and moves in his name. Just remember, I said, Bismillah. Everything says Bismillah. He is the one who creates, originates, and teaches. Whatever man learns and whatever experience and knowledge he acquires come originally from Allah. He has taught man what he did not know. You see? So a careful examination of the early verses of the Quran reveals an invitation for us, see, to examine and investigate the heavens and earth and everything that can be seen in the environment. How long? For 13 years. My dear sisters and brothers in Indonesia, just remember, for 13 years in Mecca, there was no Saum, no fasting, no Zakah, no Hajj. Only Salah was the last years of the Meccan period. So the whole emphasis of the Quran for 13 years was to change the perception of Meccan Muslims about universe, about Allah, about ourselves. To study the book of universe, to study the book of the nature, to just feel Allah is the creator and sustainer of everything. He is Rabbul Alameen. Then in the Medina, we have fasting, we have zakat, we have hajj. And of course, as I said, salat was given us at the Laylatul Miraj, at the last years of the Meccan period. So we have to look at all the universe, and as an active Muslim. This is why, as you know, the poet philosopher Allama Muhammad Iqbal from Pakistan, he said, main purpose of the earliest revelations for 13 years in Mecca was to awaken in man the higher consciousness of his manifold relation with God and the universe. Let me repeat that. The main purpose of the earliest revelations to awaken in man the higher consciousness of his manifold relation with God and the universe. First, to change his overall worldview, then to construct his image of himself, and finally, his attitudes, feelings, sentiments, and the patterns of his relationship with reality will begin to change accordingly. When I reflect on these mind-blowing sentences, I just think for myself, what is my attitudes and feelings and sentiments to extinction of species, to destroyed forests, to the pollution of oceans, to the pollution of seas, okay? And the destruction of environment and the climate crisis. What I must feel as a Muslim or Muslimah on the Quranic worldview. You see, this poet philosopher, Muhammad Iqbal, is saying, it's reminding us a very, very important aspect of the Quran. We have to rethink on our attitudes, feelings, sentiments, and the patterns of all relationships with reality, and if it is based on Islamic values or not. You see, all these are the root of Islamic environmentalism. Again, you all know, or at least many of you, know by heart, Surah Ar-Rahman is one of the most, beautiful surahs in the Quran. And it says in us, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Ar-Rahman allama al-Quran, khalaqa al-insan, allamahu al-bayan, الشمس والقمر بحسبان والنجم والشجر يسجدان والسماء رفعها ووضع الميزان ألا تطغوا في الميزان وأقيموا الوزن بالقسط ولا تخسروا الميزان. You see, then it continues. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان. So, in this Meccan surah, it makes clear the sun and the moon follow courses exactly computed, and the earth and the trees both alike bow in adoration, and the firmament he raised high, and he has set up the balance of justice. This is Mizan. In order that you may not transgress, do you balance? Mizan. So establish weight with justice and fall not short in the balance. You see, here, Al-Mizan, justice is presented to us as a universal law. Justice and balance are universal law of God, created by God in the universe, in the nature. And that as a result, man should conduct a just and balanced life. So all interaction with nature, with the universe, must be with Mizan, with a spirit of sustainability, with a spirit of not destroying the ecosystems. You can read this in my presentation later. So one immediate conclusion from an environmentalist perspective is that every individual creature or being has its own ontological existence as a sign of God, and by its very being manifests and reveals his majesty and mercy. Therefore, every creature deserves attention and consideration for its relation to the divine. This reminds us what deep ecology movement is trying to develop on a secular basis. But here, we Muslims, you see, for us, Muslims, every single creature deserves attention, protection, reconsideration, for its relation to the divine. It is created by Allah. Muslims have a moral obligation to understand, respect, and preserve nature. Muslims have to care for environment, climate change, and animal extinction on this Quranic worldview. You see, I know Professor Fazlur Rahman is also a great scholar, is also from Pakistan. And he says there's no doubt that a central aim of the Quran is an ethical, egalitarian social order. The Quran began by criticizing two closely related aspects of the society: the polytheism or multiplicity of gods, which was symptomatic of segmentation of society, the gross socio-economic disparities that equally rested on and perpetuated a pernicious divisiveness of mankind. And the Prophet's duty is to succeed in implementation the message in order to reform the earth and remove corruption from.
2 kali sehari, pagi sama malam.
Social order,
Kasih ya.
wherein good shall be commanded and evil prohibited. You see, this is the from the major themes of the Quran from the and then let me
Ini 2 kali sehari,
Muslim philosophers developed,
3.000
in the
pagi
Islamic
sama
golden
malam.
age, they developed new ethical theories. Many Muslim scholars, but they are impacted by Greek philosophy, but translation Greek philosophy. So we thought the scholars of this period who translated the works of the ancient Greeks, it is likely that much of ancient knowledge would not have been would have been lost. The Greek-Muslim connection contributed to the development of a genre of ethics that relate to metaphysics to virtue ethics. So Muslim philosophers utilized the Greek legacy and devised their theories within an Islamic setting. See, the classic Islamic ethical theories are not derived from the Quranic Weltanschauung directly. They do not reflect the spirit of the Quran on certain contemporary topics such as human rights, gender, last but not least, animals, with a deep study of the Quranic Weltanschauung. When we look at the ethics of books by Razi, by Ghazali, and also by Nasruddin Tusi and Farabi, Ibn Sina, it is ethics of virtues. Okay, but they are based on the Quranic verse. They use the Quranic verses. They also utilize the hadith from the Prophet. But what is missing is the Quranic spirit of mercy and compassion in these ethical books. You see? So we need an ethics of compassion. When we look at the Quran, because as I said, we have to look at our problem with the Quranic lenses. In the Quran, God says, وَرَحْمَةِ وَسِعَتْ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ. My mercy encompasses all things. Sadaqallahu al-Azim. كَتَبَ عَلَى نَفْسِهِ الرَّحْمَةِ. He has decreed mercy on himself. This is Allah in the Quran. He says, he has decreed mercy on himself. However, compassion is the source of morality is neglected by classical and modern theorists of Islamic ethics. This is my argument. We have to develop an ethics of compassion. Compassion to our families, compassion to our people, compassion to animals, compassion to all nature. We need to develop such an ethics. And let me, so as the title of my talk, in fact, the root word of Islam is a sin, which means peace, submission, and surrender. Quran discloses that peace is one of the names of Allah himself. He is God, other than whom there is no God. The King, the Holy, the Peace, Salam, the Defender, the Guardian, the Mighty, the Omnipotent, and the Supreme. Peace is a moral imperative for Muslims. Peace with God, peace with himself or herself, with family, with society, with creation. So we have to develop an ethics of compassion and peace with the whole creation. Because as you remember, the Quran applies the term Islam to entire nature and universe insofar as it obeys God's law. Islam derives from the roots SLM, as I said, which means to be safe, to be whole and integral, not to be disintegrated. The basic idea is that by accepting the law of God and surrendering to it, one avoids disintegration. Don't you see, quote from the Quran, don't you see that to God bow down in worship all things that are in heavens and on earth, the sun, the moon, the stars, the hills, the trees, the animals, and great number among mankind. Chapter 22, verse 18. You know, when we read this, we must be just speechless. It is a breathtaking verse from the Quran. Just look, there is a cosmic worship in the universe. There is a cosmic worship. Heavens, earth, sun, moon, hills, trees, animals, everything is worshiping Allah. So we are the only species who join this cosmic worship with his or her free will. You can join it, you can decline. It is your own responsibility. But what is here is important, you know, it is the moral dimensions. This is why Quran mentioned animals mentioned by name in the Quran. Camels, cattle, horses, mules, donkeys, sheep, you see, dogs, pigs, snakes, worms, ants, bees, spiders, mosquitoes, and flies. We are invited by Quran very often to consider camels and how they are created. Could you imagine? أَفَلَا يَنْظُرُونَ إِلَى الْإِبِلِ كَيْفَ خُلِقَتْ صدق الله العظيم. Arab, of course, they was looking at their camel. But, dear sisters and brothers, Quran says how they are created. Quran invites us to see the creation, and then to creator, then to understand his full relation, connectedness to the creator. So, and Quran also invites to, you know, to consider the sky and how it is raised high, the mountains and how they are fixed firm, and the earth and how it is spread out. Chapter 88, verse 17 to 20. The implication is that all the phenomena around us are full of meaning, high design, and the goodness of Allah to human beings. Human being is not owner and master of nature and animals. Please don't forget this. We human beings, we are not owner and master of nature and animals. Therefore, we cannot treat them as we wish. There are moral responsibilities and boundaries. And you see, this is why Islamic environmentalists, you saw Islamic worldview and animals, the Islamic tradition, perhaps more so than any other, has much to say about the need to respect all parts of God's creation, even insects. You see, this is from Richard Falls, Animals in Islamic Tradition and Muslim Cultures. You see, the environmentalists in America, also in the world, they do believe that the Quran is the most environmentalist book. But the problem is not the Quran. The problem is Muslims' understanding of the Quran. You see? And this is why when we look at Islamic history, you see, we have, Al-Jahaz's famous text, Kitab al-Hayawan, and Ibn Qutayba, Uyum al-Akhbar is the most useful information. Ibn Sina, Kitab al-Shifa, especially the book on healing, a lot of references in the classical Islam. And, the best example for us as a Muslim environmentalist is our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Muslims regard the Prophet Muhammad والسلام, as the perfect man and the complete person, insan kamil, representing in his life and person an example all Muslims should aspire to follow. Sunnah. The Quran addressing the Prophet declares, indeed, you have been endowed with a noble character. Quran chapter 68, verse 4. Then Quran reminds us, in the messenger of Allah, you have beautiful pattern of conduct. Aisha, the Prophet ﷺ wife, describes her husband as having a character that mirrors the Quran, a living Quran, mirroring Quran. So what was Prophet ﷺ attitude towards animals, towards nature? Let me summarize this, then conclude my presentation. During, as I said, during his ministry, he presented good examples of how compassion can be a source of moral responsibility towards all creatures. Insisted on the protection and kind treatment of animals. Muslims should act kindly towards all living beings. And he said, quote, the most merciful one is merciful towards those who are merciful. Act kindly to those on the earth, so that those in the heavens, the angels, will be merciful to you. Birds' nests should not be disturbed, or the eggs or chicks stolen. Ordered someone who had filled his bag with the fledglings stolen from nests brought to the town to return them to their nest immediately. Warned Muslims against mistreatments of animals. This is the sunnah of the Prophet. Okay? But for the first time, still in the Muslim countries, we have problem of animal rights, human rights. The Western countries, especially the Europeans and America, they criticize some Muslim countries. They don't respect the human rights. But when we look at the God's messenger, we have a different picture. Because God's messenger stated that, like human beings, animals employed in various tasks had the right to rest, and then stopping to rest on journeys. He insisted that animals' needs should be met and they should be rested. And Anas bin Malik, one of the companions of Prophet, relate us, whenever we arrived at the stopping place, we would never start the prayers until we had removed the loads from the packed animals and left them free to rest. You see, before praying, before eating, before resting, they take care of the animals. This is the Prophet's sunnah. So we have to be careful. We have to have the same spirit with our animals in our possessions. So the Prophet himself and the metaphor of the well, and he just trained his Sahaba with a metaphor, and quote, a man who was walking along a road and felt thirsty, and finding a well, he lowered himself into it and drank. When he came out, he found a dog panting from thirst and licking at the earth. He therefore went down again to the well and filled his shoe with water and gave it to the dog. For this act, God Almighty forgave him his sins. The Prophet was then asked whether man had a reward through animals, and he replied, quote, in everything that lives there is reward. You see, this is why I said we need the ethics of compassion. And our Prophet is rahmatan lil alameen. He's a compassion for human beings, is a compassion for animals. And this spirit is just impacted the classical Muslims' perception of animals, as I will show you some examples. So it is very clear. The Prophet ﷺ insists on the protection of animals and the kind treatment of them. Torture and abuse of animals prohibited. They should not be ill-treated, but should be well looked after, kept clean, and employed in work suitable for their natures. Should not be loaded with burdens greater than they can bear. He put a ban on hunting, forbidding the arbitrary hunting of animals for pleasure. So he also established HIMA, inviolable zones, which are called sanctuaries. No, it is called national parks in the many countries. So if the Muslims examine the life of the Prophet ﷺ with a green eye, we can discover new insights for developing Muslim environmental ethics. Let me give you example how the Quranic world to you, the example of the Prophet is shaped the mentality of a Muslim, Muslima, Rabi'a al-Adawiyya. You see, the most famous female saint in Islam, Awliya, who differs from those of early Sufis. She was very true mystic, inspired by ardent love and conscious of having entered into the unitive life with God. Rabia, with her approach, the whole creation with compassion was rewarded with friendship of animals. Rabia, then we are told one day Rabia had gone to the mountain and herds of wild animals gathered around her. Hassan al-Basri approached and the animals ran away. He was angry and asked Rabia, rahimahullah, why did they run from me but had friendship with you? Rabia asked him what he had eaten that day, to which he replied, onions fried in fat. And Rabia replied, you have eaten their fat? How should they not run away from you? How should they trust you? You see, because then we learn Rabia is the first Muslim vegetarian lady. And so you see, he just developed a spirit of compassion. And this example I found it from the Reinhard Nicholson, a great British Orientalist, book, The Mystic of Islam. He narrates us the following story. Bayazid, 19th century Muslim mystic, Mutasawwif, purchased some cardamom, sit at the Hamadan, and before departing, put into his gabardine a small quantity which was left over. On reaching Bistam and remembering what he had done, who took out the seed and found out that it contained a number of ants, saying, I have carried the poor creatures away from their home. He immediately set off and journeyed back to Hamadan, a distance of several hundred miles. I look at Google map, it is 724 kilometers. Could you imagine why these few ants? This is the reflection of compassion, ethics of compassion in the Quran and in the life of the Prophet ﷺ. You see, and also we can see it in Izzeddin ibn Abd Salam, 13th century chief mufti of Cairo. He also in Qawaid al-Ahkam fi Masalih al-Anam, he enumerates the rights of animals. Okay, I just omit this too. Then also total consumption is prohibited by our Prophet, by the Quran, and also by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Wastefulness is not only total consumption of natural resources, it is at the same time disrespect towards Allah, the creator, the sustainer, and owner of all the bounties in the world. Okay? This is why israf is haram. Therefore, eating and drinking of licit food is lawful in Islam, but wastefulness is strictly forbidden. God says, quote, verily, we have created all things in proportion and measure. O children of Adam, wear your beautiful apparel at every time and place of prayer. Eat and drink, but waste not by excess. لا تسرفوا إن الله لا يحب كلوا واشربوا ولا تسرفوا إن الله لا يحب المسرفين. Eat and drink, but waste not by excess, for God loves not the wasters. So we have to develop we have to not be victim of consumer cultures. So let me finish with two examples how this classical Quranic understanding of nature, universe, shape Muslim mentality, shape Muslim attitude towards centuries. Up to 19th century, these values were there in the Muslim countries. And this Alfonso de Loma, I read a lot of memoirs of Western travelers in the Muslim world. Especially, you see, this Alfonso Lamartine visited Istanbul 3 times and observed the Muslims' life and their interaction. Look, I just took this from his book. He says, Muslims have good relations with all creatures, animate and inanimate, trees, birds, dogs. In short, they respect all things God has created. You see, this gentleness is defining the Muslim perception of environment. Muslims have good relation with all creatures, animate and inanimate. Trees, birds, dogs, in short, they respect all things God has created. They extend their compassion and kindness to all the species of wretched animals which in our countries are abandoned or ill-treated. You see, I started my talk with the Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, then Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. I underline and bring to your attention, and I said, let's reflect on the meaning, what is Rahman, merciful, is. What is the ethics of what is compassion is. What Allah means is kataba ala nafsi rahma. You see how our grandfathers and they understood this in the past. They extended, you say, Muslim extended compassion and kindness to all the species of wretched animals, which in our countries are abandoned and or ill-treated. In all cities, at specific intervals, they leave bowls of water for the dogs of the district. You can still see these bowls when you visit Istanbul. In the old town, you can see in some streets. You see, some Muslim pious foundations, waqf, at their deaths for the pigeons they have fed throughout their lives, thus ensuring that grain will be scattered for the birds after they have departed. Even they departed, you see, this is, I say, we have to, if we have moral responsibilities to the future generations, of course we have. You see, or in our history, our legacy, they felt full moral responsibility towards even animals. When they passed away, they founded some waqfs to just take care of these animals. And the second example is a British Orientalist, Edward William Lane. He's a British Orientalist, translator, lexicographer. He said Edward Lane adopted the dress of an upper-class Ottoman when he made his visit to Cairo in 1825. It is 19th century. And he stayed there for more than 10 years. You see, they ask him why he's dressed why he's dressed like a Muslim, an Ottoman bey. He said, if dressed in the European style, dogs often bark at person in the Frank dress. Why? And he says, I was much pleased to observing their humanity to dump, to dump animals, to see a person who gathered together the folds of his loose clothes to prevent their coming in contact with a dog, throw to the impure animal a portion of the bread which he was eating. On a second visit to he notes that after 10 years, I found the generality of Egyptians very much changed for the worse with respect to their humanity to brutes and their fellow creatures. I incline to think that the contact of Europeans has greatly conducted to produce this effect. It is because of Europeans, he says. So I think today we have to rethink about our tradition. We have to rethink about the Quran. We have to rethink about the Sunnah of the Prophet with the ethics of compassion, to develop an ethics of compassion. Okay, how the Quran and how the Prophet ﷺ can be a role model for us to offer to humanity and ethics of Islamic ethics of environment. And here we in 2015 we held International Islamic Climate Change Symposium in Istanbul, and Fahrettin was there, and Nana was there, and we published a declaration. And you see, it was, Professor Azlan Baharuddin from Malaysia, and Osman Levy in Saudi Arabia, and Fazlun Khalid from UK, and Fakhruddin Magunjaya from, Indonesia, and myself, and also Abdul Majid Tiribak. But then you see, with this declaration, we invited, all Islamic leaders. We made a bold call for rapid phase out of fossil oils. And it is covered in all the major media. And we said, we too believe that the world must recognize that climate change is not one of the greatest moral, social, and environmental issues facing humanity today. We believe global warming is occurring, and the impacts of climate change are not evenly distributed time and again. We have seen the poorest countries suffering the impacts of climate change the most. Then, just after 10 years, just look at Pakistan, look at Sudan, look at Somalia, look at some other poor countries, African countries, how they are impacted by the climate change, and which has resulted in global refugee problem. And then, the same team, we prepared AlMizan Covenant for the Earth. You see, this is now, it is the final phase. It is the final phase. Then it will be declared to the world. And here, we made it just, this is a very important text. Again, here, the core team is here. Yeah. And then it is AlMizan, a Covenant for the Earth, present an Islamic outlook of the environment in a bid to strengthen local, regional, and international actions that combat climate change and other threats to the planet. It is a global endeavor to engage Islamic scholars and Muslim institutions in development and adoption of this call. Therefore, after we finish the text, we send it to 300 Muslim institutions and scholars for their feedback. And then we put all this, we evaluate all these feedbacks, and we made the final draft. And this examines the ethics behind the social patterning of human existence and inquires into how they could be brought to life today, working in harmony with the heartbeat of the natural world, which is created by Allah. Okay? So, let me just finish with my few recommendations. We cannot change the laws of nature, which is created by Allah. Okay, Sunnatullah. But we can change our broken economic conception patterns and unsustainable lifestyles. Shakespeare once said, to be or not to be, that is the question. If he would see these troubled times of ours, he may suggest to us to change or not to change. This is the question. Therefore, our leaders, scholars, scientists, as well as NGOs need critical action to address urgent, pending, and increasing environmental degradation and related challenges of social and economic unsustainability, and make all necessary changes courageously. We can imagine a world in which our children and grandchildren may enjoy sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth and decent work for all. Okay? Just, yes. To conclude, Muslims' perception of environment and sustainability has been shaped by the Quran and exemplary life of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allah created the universe and adorns the skies with the sun, the moon, the stars, and the face of the earth with flowers, trees, gardens, orchids, and various animal species. Everything is interdependent, interconnected with everything else. Humans should or must consider this interconnectedness when dealing and interacting with the natural environment. We are not the owners and masters of the natural environment. We are trustees, and we have to care for creation for the sake of the Creator. Thank you very much. Now I can take your questions.
Pencipta. Silakan bertanya.
I think we have time for questions. Okay, yes.
Question, please.
Mr. Hendra, you have to unmute yourself, please.
Thank you so much, Prof. Ibrahim Ozdemir, to give us several knowledge this great occasion. And I allow to the all participants who gonna ask to Prof. direct is okay. And if you would like to translate, okay, or you can chat in our room. I also allow to Ustazah Nursofa Inara to ask Professor Ibrahim Ozdemir. The time for you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Good evening, Professor Ibrahim Ozdemir. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to ask questions. First, I would like to introduce myself. I'm actually a counseling teachers at Islamic boarding school, Darul Arqam Muhammadiyah Islamic boarding school. So my questions to you this evening would be regarding how to teach. And you said earlier that Muslims have moral obligations to understand and preserve the nature. And I think everyone is agreed that we have to internalize the values since they are younger to prepare the next generations. And my question would be, what would be the best method to that teachers like me could use to teach the young minds so they would be able to internalize the concept of Khalifah fil art? Sometimes when I discuss with them about the concept of Khalifah fil art, meaning that they will have to prayers like Salat Saum. I would like them to understand that it means more than that, and of course that we have to care not only about ourselves, our relationship with Allah, but also our relationship with animals, and then all the creatures that around us. So how to internalize the concept of Khalifah fil art, no matter what science they are going to pursue in the college. I think that not everybody in my school, not all the students in my school like would like to go to like one kind of major, but they would like to learn a different kinds of major. But I think it's very important in which way they are going to study. They still have to be Khalifah fil art, also depending on what science they are going to learn. Like also like how can we teach them to think critically better? Because I think in Indonesia the concept of critical thinking, it's a challenge. Like we are like here in Indonesia, when students or like younger people challenge senior people, or like people that are older than them, sometimes people regard them as a rude person. So I think how we as a young people can think critically, but still in a good manner. Also, my last questions, in your presentations earlier, I saw a lot of books that I think is really great, but I would like to know which one of book that you would like to recommend to the teachers. So like that book can enlighten and enhance our skill, also increase our knowledge in how to teach the children about respectfully protect the environment in Islamic way. Thank you, Professor Ibrahim Ozdemir. It's really nice to have discussions with you. Thank you. Good evening.
Thank you, Nur Sofa Inara Ustazah. I allow you to answer direct, Professor, about Khalifa fil art. The time for you.
Yes, it is very good questions. Thank you. I am really happy to hear that, Nur. We are developing a new methodology for teacher training. We made this in UK and also in the US and also in Turkey. We just finished one course in Istanbul. We call it summer seminar and also teacher training program. How to teach our children with the Tawhidi paradigm. How to expose nature to our children. Because in many textbooks, in science books, the nature is exposed just with materialistic perception. Just make our children to memorize the Quran, memorize Hadith is not enough. We have to teach them how to look at nature, how to understand nature, how to discover our place in the nature. I also used to live in Finland for 2 years. The Finnish people, they are doing this very well, but with a naturalistic perspective. But we can learn from them. They have many of their classes in the nature. Even in the winter, they don't care. It is snowing. They took children, from kindergarten to primary school children to the forest. They say, we are part of nature. We cannot change nature, but we can change ourselves. This is why I got my phrase from them. We cannot change the law of nature. This is also Quran, Sunnatullah. But we can change our perception of nature. They say nature is our mother, therefore we have to take care of her. This is why every single Finnish is environmentalist by education. So you can see it is the best education in the world, the best economically and best sustainable economic system. In many, from many dimensions, Finnish example is a good example. So we have to take our children out of school. This is why I criticize nation-state mentality in our education system. Still, in many Muslim countries, educational system is very ideological. Because of nations, we have a history of independence from colonial powers, some for 50 years, Turkey, some for 80 years or 70 years. We couldn't change this curricula. But everything is changing, but we protect our environmental, educational curricula in the Muslim world. Let's don't we have to challenge ourselves, and let's take our children to the nature. And they say, "Iqra bismi rabbika allazi khalaq." What it means? Everything is created by God and sustained by God. What that means? Everything is just, there's a lot of new studies. They say trees are speaking. How we can hear the voice of the trees? How we can hear the voice of, birds? There's a revolution of mindfulness in America, in the West. because of Buddhism. And I met some of these people and also read a lot of from mindfulness. They are just changed their mentality, perception of nature with the teaching of the Buddha. I couldn't believe an American and a British and also a French man or woman, they just read some, teachings of Buddha, they changed their perception. As I presented to you, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. And then look at the Quran. Quran is full of the references to the universe. Why we are not changing our perception of nature, animal species, according to the Quran? If we present this to our children, they will find solutions, Nur. They will come up with solutions. We are trained and educated with a different educational system. It's gonna be difficult for us to come with some new things. But if we start with the kindergarten children, then from the early age, and present them how Allah is created and sustaining the system, the nature. What is the meaning of water? For example, in a mindfulness session, they say, just drink this water as you are drinking for the first time. Just discover how it is important for your body, then for other animals, then for the whole system. This is a secular perception. But just look at the Quran. فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. If you want to count the blessings of Allah, you cannot. Because everything is blessings, is ni'mah from Allah. So we have to teach this to our children. And for this, we have a 5D teaching model. And I will, give you more information about that. I will send to Adinda and also the books. I have a list of the books I can share with you. Very good questions. We have very good books and some text. You can benefit from them. Okay, you can always get in contact with me. I can help on this issue. I can be your, supervisor. You don't hesitate to get contact with me. Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you,
Sorry.
People like me, and also Fakhrettin, we are always, we were in Morocco, we were, many countries with Fakhrettin. Why? Just to defend the Islamic environmentalism, to just let people to know what is Islam says about environment. You couldn't believe it. We have 200 universities in Turkey. Only Üsküdar University, in my university, I put, something about environment on the web page. But if you look at Yale University, they have all resources from the Quran, from the Hadith, and all bibliography about Islam and ecology. We prepared, and they publish it. They care for the environment. But Muslim universities, academia, they must devote studies on that. They must, have on their websites, they must make it available, many toolkits about how to care about the environment from an Islamic perspective, from a Quranic perspective, from a prophetic perspective. There must be a lot of toolkits for us. We are trying to do this as AlMizan team. Inshallah, we need your dua. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm actually read some of your writings from your LinkedIn. Yeah, so I think for the future communication, I would like to use LinkedIn if you don't mind. Professor.
Okay.
Keep in touch.
Okay,
Keep
Bu
in
Nur
touch.
Soba.
Thank you.
Okay. Prof. Ibrahim, one of our friend also asked you about is global climate change a general natural phenomenon, meaning that climate change is part of the harmony of God controls. Is it true that the perception of global climate change is too anthropocentric? And how significant are ethics of compassion in facing environmental issues? And why the ethic of compassion that you emphasize specifically to us, not virtue ethic or utilitarian ethic or the other ethic theories? Can you explain this, Prof?
This is very, very, very good and important question. Thank you very much. And as you remember, Fahrettin, we have a big discussion about the concept of Khalifa, because they also blame us, Islam is an anthropocentric religion. But we made it very clear that Islamic perception of human as Khalifa is totally different from what the anthropocentric people there meaning. The Islamic perception of anthropocentrism has a moral burden, has a moral implication. We people, the servants of Allah, we are responsible for everything we have done or we will gonna to do to the nature. So it is an ethics of responsibility and compassion. And let me tell you, there was a PhD student from Switzerland. She's a lady. She just, in her dissertation, she used my definition of anthropocentrism and Khalifa as a good example. And her dissertation is on the construction of dam in India and the impact of this dam, economic impact, social impact, cultural impact for the present generation, for the nature, for the animals, and also for the generation to come, future generations. And he reached the conclusion that the politician of India, the decision makers, they are only focused on the present generation. Even the gain, the product of this dam is not distributed equally. And this student, she said, I am a secular person, but I share Muslim environmental philosopher Ibrahim Özdem's definition of Khalifa. Khalifa, human being, who means who has full responsibility, moral responsibility towards nature, towards future generations. You see, that's it. Even as secular people, they say, I agree with him because he cares for my children, my grandchildren. He cares for extinction of animal species. We as Muslims, it's our moral obligation to care for creation because it has been created and sustained by Allah. And just remember when you say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and just remember every single being in the world, they are saying Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. But they say it in their own tongue. وَإِن مِّن شَيْءٍ إِلَّا يُسَبِّحُ بِحَمْدِهِ وَلَكِنْ لَا تَفْقَهُوا تَسْبِحَهُمْ صَدَقَ اللَّهُ الْعَظِيمُ. Every single thing they praise Allah, but you don't understand their language. So if you don't know their language, you study it, you learn it. If you want to learn Chinese, you have to study Chinese. If you want to learn Bahasa Indonesia, you have to study. So Quran encourages us to study, to try to understand the language of creation, the language of birth. You see? Thank you. I can give you a lot of examples from especially Sufi tradition, Sufi literature, but because of the time limit, I just point out, you can find it in the, just look at the Fakhreddin Attar, you see, the Mantuq Tair, and a lot of other books. Yes, okay.
Thank you, Bro. Thank you so much. Just now from Wahid, Pesantren Al-Munawir, Krapiak, Yogyakarta. And now from Fakhr Razi, of course, he thank you for presentation. And he also has a question about Fakhr Razi thought I'm interested in Mizan, especially between modernity and ecology. It also seems a difficult choice to be modern or to be. What do you mean, sir? Can you answer this?
We are just discovering the concept of AlMizan. Although it is a Quranic core value, core concept. Now, one of my students, she's a Russian student, and she's doing her PhD, how AlMizan and also how a Khalifa is understood in classical and modern tafsirs. For example, she took an example, Fakhruddin Razi's Tafsir al-Kabir, and also Tabari Tafsir, and also to Rashid Riza, to Sa'id Nursi. Even Sayyid Qutb. But Sayyid Qutb is just, understood as a political ideologue. But when I look at Fizul al-Quran, especially the Surah al-Makkiyah, I was just speechless. It was mind-blowing how he's eloquently is describing the whole Quran presents us a totally, moral universe, full of meaning, full of purpose, full of everything. Of course, I don't agree with some of his political views, but why is his interpretation of the Quran on the Mecca and Surahs, it is excellent. So, but just we are thinking about, we got our independence from the colonial powers, but still we took our economic system from them. In many Islamic countries, we are new liberal or neoliberalism economic system, which is based on consumption, more consumption. We have to develop a new economic system which is sustainable. This is why the West also needs it. I am living in America, and America is more unequal country in the world. Millions of people go bed every day hungry. This is a reality of this systemic capitalist system. They cannot solve it. Barack Obama tried to just to come up with a new, more humanitarian Medicare system, which provide free medical service to the poor and also homeless people. As you remember, on the first day, Mr. Trump he just abolished this law, changed this law. So if we come up something new, something comprehensive, which is based on the compassion of Islam, compassion of Allah, compassion of Prophet as Rahmatan lil Alameen, then you will see many people there ready to hear, to listen to us. Then we can present Islam in a totally new way to the world. Yeah. Therefore, we have to talk more about the concept of Khalifa because it is misunderstood. Yes, in the time of colonial times, it was good to understand Khalifa as the political leader for our political independence. But no, we have our independence. No, it is time to look ourselves as a Khalifa fil art. What is my responsibility today? You see, this evening I couldn't sleep. I just woke up twice in the evening if I just will miss my time or night. Why? Because I full responsibility. My Indonesian brothers and sisters, they're gonna to listen to me. I must be on time. I must be ready, etc., etc. This is a moral responsibility. So we have to develop the same moral responsibility. What is my responsibility to protect the sea ecology, the ocean ecology, the forest ecology, the extinction of animals? What about future generations? They're gonna to have drinkable water or not? We have to think all about that. We have to talk about that. If you look at politicians, they just care about next election. You see, it is politics everywhere. The horizon of a politician is next election. But our horizon must not be election. It must be the next world. How we will tell, when we meet Allah, inshallah, on the day of judgment, what we should say. What have you done for your children, for grandchildren, for the animals? What you have done? When they were distracting environment, what have you done? This is why I gave you the example of the story of ant with Ibrahim alayhi salam. At least I will say, I wrote with Dr. Fahrettin, some articles, some books. We attended many conferences. We made a wake-up call. If it is hurt or not, it is not my responsibility. I am trying my best. Yes, Adinda.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Ibrahim. Anyone of you guys wanna ask also to Prof. Ibrahim Azdemir, like Khatibul Umam, I allow you to ask. Or Fauzi, is it okay?
Hendra, can I translate the first answer is very interesting to me to.
Oh, okay, I allow you to
Tadi
translate.
Profesor Ozdemir menjawab tentang pendidikan anak-anak ya. Jadi beliau bilang menghafal Al-Quran saja tidak cukup. Pergilah ke alam. Pergi ke alam karena beliau berpengalaman kemarin di Finlandia mengajar. Orang Finlandia itu kan pendidikannya nomor 1 di dunia. Dan anak-anaknya itu bermain di alam. Mereka bawa ke alam dan bahkan di saat musim dingin sekalipun mereka harus belajar di alam. Nah, dan mereka menyadarkan kita adalah bagian dari alam. Dan alam tidak bisa merubah kita, kitalah yang harus merubah diri. Jadi sangat penting saya kira kita garis bawahi karena kita kan memahami sudah dari awal bahwa ada ayat kauniyah dan ayat kauliyah. Kauliyahnya itu teks yang kita hafal itu, tapi Allah menciptakan kauniyah, ayat-ayat yang di alam itu. Jadi bagus juga dibawa anak-anak ke alam untuk memahami alam semesta dan ciptaan Tuhan yang lain. Saya kira saya garis bawahi itu karena sangat penting buat kita pelajar eko pesantren. Mungkin ada kurikulum tadabbur alam, ya tidak di mana nanti mungkin di Taman Nasional atau di mana anak-anak disuruh melihat dedaunan, pohon-pohonan, itu ada namanya disiplin biofilia namanya, human bond to nature. Jadi sangat penting untuk berinteraksi dengan alam supaya mereka mengasah kepekaan terhadap sains dan ilmu pengetahuan tentang lingkungan. Demikian Ustadz Hendra, terima kasih.
Thank you, sir. Prof. Ibrahim, some of our friends also chats me about, is there any scientific reason when you took this title, Islamic Ethic for Environment? Of course, they assume you have scientific reason until you are really focusing on this title. That the first is. And second is, you also mentioned the Sufiyah, like Rabi'ah al-Adawiyah, and also Izzuddin. Why you mention this Sufi? Is there any hidden or is there any thinking that especially for us to take the lesson from their thinking? That's from Ibrahim.
I just try, these very good questions, I just try to present you the whole Islamic culture legacy is diverse and they all care about the environment. In Qawaid al-Ahkam, it is fiqh. There was strict rules about how we treat animals. Strict rules in 13th century. And also when I give from Tasawwuf, from Sufism, and also in modern world, Sufism is also very ideologized, very distorted. I look at the Risalat Kushairi, Imam Kushairi from the 11th century. At that time, he was saying we have the needed ethics of compassion. Compassion for everything, because the name of Allah is Rahman. So we have to look at our tafsir, we have to look at kalam, we have to look at all this legacy with a green lens, with a green perspective, to see what is there. There are many things about environment, there's many things about all the meaning of the creation. We are not aware of that, especially just read the Hikmatullah fi Mahlukatihi, Imam Ghazali, Hikmatullah fi Mahlukatihi. I just, sometimes I just speechless. And also in Ihya, in many parts of Ihya, about, shukr, when he says shukr, he just, what is the ni'mat of Allah? But what we need is to present this with a new perception, with a new formula. To make, as teacher Nur said, how to present this to our children. Because at that time there was no climate change, there was no environmental problems, but they respect creation for the sake of the creator. And just look at the Hikmatullah fi Ma'luqati, just refer to what Ghazali says about bees, about ants, about some other ants. You are just, speechless. So it is our moral obligation, responsibility to protect these animals because they are created by Allah. This is why I'm saying. And it is there in our legacy. As I said, I read a lot of memoirs of travelers, Western travelers in 18th, 19th century in the Muslim world at that time, the Ottoman lands. And they're just, there was, full of examples how a good environmental ethics is there in the grassroots. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Fahrudin Samun from Al-Bustania, Cilegon. Thank you for your presentation. I want to ask you, please give me tips how to do strategy for face climate positive change. Please, sir.
Can you repeat it? I couldn't get it.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for your presentation. I want to ask you, please give me or give a tip to Fahrudin Samun how to face this, how we gonna do, how about the strategy to face the climate positive change?
I think you have to. I have to send you a copy of AlMizan, a Covenant for the Earth. You have everything there.
Okay.
Even a roadmap for you, for all of us. It's gonna be.
Prof. Ibrahim will give you a roadmap how to face the climate positive change. Is it?
Yeah. Okay. Because as you Laudato Si by Pope Francis, as you said, it declared in 2015. It was a major document for the world, and all Catholics in the world there publicized this, that translated it into all languages. So, but we Muslims, we don't have such a document. For the first time, we are prepared on the name of you, all Muslims, because Fahrettin is there everywhere. Professor Azan is there. We produced an excellent document. Excellent document. It is at Azhar University. We are taking the Azhar University's feedbacks. Then we will publish it. You will see there everything as a roadmap. All literature, all bibliographies, all concepts we are defined from an Islamic perspective, from the Tawhidi paradigm, from the revealed knowledge paradigm. Okay, this is yes, you are right. So far we have a lot of shortcomings when compared to the Christian and Buddhist environmentalists. We are behind of them, unfortunately.
Yes, Prof. Ibrahim. Mr. Wahid Al-Munawir from Rabia also say, yes, we need the PDF. So when you will give the PDF at the roadmap for climate change, you may give to Dr. Fahrudin or to chief of this committee. So where is that?
I will send to you, Fahrettin, I will send to you. You can distribute it, okay?
Okay, Dr. Fahrudin or Adinda, Pak Edi Hendras, Prof. Ibrahim will give you direct.
We will put that on online, possibly.
Yes.
But we just need the Al-Azhar feedbacks. Then we will finalize. We will put it in the final form.
Sure.
Maybe it takes 2 or 3 weeks. Okay. But yeah. I took my note. Don't worry. I will send it.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
Is that the Arabic file already from Azhar?
No, we have Arabic, Turkish, German, and French translations, English translations. Most probably it gonna be translated into Bahasa in
it's already in Bahasa, inshallah.
Yeah, inshallah. Inshallah.
Inshallah.
Okay, Hendra. Terima kasih Pak Ustadz.
Yes, one again.
Ada lagi?
We know
Sudah
about
setengah
the human
12.
right. And also you mentioned here in your PPT, 4 point, right of animal. How to differentiate between human right and right of animals, sir?
You know, it is not difficult. You know, we are as a human being, we are, as I said, our concept of anthropocentrism is different from the Western concept of anthropocentrism. Yes, we are also part of animal world, but humans is at the top of the creation. This is why Allah sent prophets to the human beings, and also, you know, we have moral responsibilities. We are the only creature who has a moral moral values. Who asked about moral values? Who asked about aesthetics? Who asked about the meaning of life? No single animal asks a question about what is the meaning of life. But we ask. Therefore, we have a lot of dozens of answers, different answers. It doesn't matter. What is matter? To ask questions. What the meaning of life? Who am I? Why I am here? But this does not give us the freedom to exploit animals. Okay? Animals they are bestowed to us. They are, they are fellows in the life. They are created and sustained by Allah. And even we can, even, we can use them. We cannot, disturb them. We cannot use them before their capacity. Okay? Therefore, there is a rights of animals in classical Islam, very clear. And it makes it, we are not free in our acts. There's a new book in UK, but a British environmentalist, animal rights. And she wrote a chapter on Islam and animal rights. She excellent. And she visited many Muslim countries. She said, Muslims, they are treating animals like Westerners. They are just exploiting animals. They just care how much money they can make from animals. Okay? They don't care about their moral responsibilities to animals. She said, I read some biographies of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. He was full of compassion towards animals. But Muslims, they neglect this. They are all become capitalists. They just want to make more money from nature, more money, make more money from animals. Yes, still you can make money from animals, from nature, but with mizan, with moral responsibility. Okay? You cannot exploit them.
Thank you so much from Ibrahim, and I recommend to the all participants to read recommendation coming from Ibrahim, the first, second, and third, fourth, and his conclusion. Yes, actually, we still have several questions should be asked to you, Prof. But just because the time, we cannot add the time. No, we are Indonesia, 10 o'clock. I don't know, maybe in Turkey. What time now in Turkey, Prof?
No, I am in Boston, in America. It is 11 here.
Oh, in USA.
It's 11, yes. Family is waiting for me for breakfast. They are still waiting for breakfast.
Goodness. So this we are disturbing your time then. Yeah, right. Okay. May God bless you.
This is just an introduction. Okay, we are know each other and we are always available. I have a PhD and MA students from Indonesia, from Algeria, from Russia, from Germany, and a lady from Netherlands. Maybe you also invite her because I know the relation with Netherlands, Holland, and Indonesia is very good. During her studies, she converted to Islam. She wrote an excellent master thesis on water ethics in Islam. Yeah, she said, I met, many rich Muslims. They just consume water like Westerners. I say, how you can? They say I can't afford it. But she says, if you afford water, you cannot waste water. You cannot overuse water, because Prophet ﷺ says, when even you are taking wudu, don't use over water. Don't make israf. Then she came to the conclusion they are influenced by the Western style of life, with American culture, with American movies, Hollywood movies. They are just trying to live like Americans, but they say we are Muslims. Of course, they are Muslims, but their way of life is not Islamic. Okay?
Okay.
If
Thank
she
you
wrote,
so much, Prof. Ibrahim.
I can also send her thesis to you.
Yeah, we are writing that. Thank you so much. Thank you very much for your knowledge, for sharing with us, and hope we can meet after this. Thank you so much. Also, Pak Rudin Mawijaya, and I will give the time to Ibu Adinda Arifia Siregar. The time for you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Alhamdulillah. Thank you very much, Dr. Hendra, for really guiding our meaningful discussions. And a special thank you goes to our speaker tonight, Professor Ibrahim Osdemir. I personally hope to see you again soon, next time, in the next opportunity. And of course, we also thank to our translator, Dr. Fahrudin. And ladies and gentlemen, before we end this webinar, as usual, may I kindly request that we take a moment for a group photo for documentation. And if possible, please turn on your cameras. Please open kamera, buka kameranya. Mungkin wajah-wajah sedang ngantuk ya, even though maybe most of us have sleepy expressions, except Prof. Osdemir.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I start counting to capture the screen. 3, 2, 1. Cheese. Okay, next slide.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next, the second slide.
Shukran.
3, 2.
Makasih.
Terima kasih. Thank you very much, Professor Osdemir. And thank you so much to all participants for joining us today. We hope we all found great value in this event, and we can keep the spirit of collaboration and learning alive. Okay,
Inshallah.
until we meet again. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you everyone.
Terima kasih. Salam semua. Mohon izin.
Thank you so much. I leave the room.